We are live.
Good night. Good night.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome
to
Good
Love and
evening.
Enlightenments.
To love and LNE.
Yes.
So,
Waiting to see when we get some viewers on here. Oh, we have one. Who is the one?
Bradley.
Well, welcome the one. Nice to have you in the room.
Oh no, Norma. Norma is the first.
Hi, Norma.
Okay. Welcome, Norma.
Welcome,
Hello,
honey.
Norma.
And then we have Ava, Antoine,
Okay.
Schultebrand. And then we have Ellen.
Hey, sweetie.
Hello, Ellen. Hail up, Ellen.
Big up yourself, Ellen McGrath.
Okay. Well, Louis should be joining us shortly. And then our guest will be joining us a little later as well. I want to thank everybody for logging in to our 11th show.
Wow.
11 already?
11. This is our 11th.
Wow.
Can't believe it went by really fast.
Greetings, Mr. Samuels.
I feel like I missed something. I missed couple or something. 11.
Let me log in because I need to follow the comments.
Okay. Well, tonight our show is on love, the dark side of love, actually, abuse. So I'm gonna let Lucien kind of take the reins of this. What inspired us to even have this discussion tonight? I'll let you take it away, Lucien.
I get to be in control. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Right now.
All right. Oh, thanks.
Trying on last, Lucian. Come on now. You better hurry up.
Right now. Congratulations to that. You know?
That's for 1 minute.
Don't abuse that power. Don't abuse that power.
I know, right? Abuse is a topic. Exactly. So I don't know who has seen this thing going on with Major Hype along with his ex-fiance. I thought that it was very interesting that I can't remember her name right now, but
Kirby.
Can't remember either.
Kirby.
Mhm.
Kirby.
Thank you, Miss Danelle. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. See? Supporting cast. You see that? So Kirby, went online and she kind of like described what was going on to her with the physical abuse thing and this and that. And then of course Major Hype came back with his little thing and then she came back again. In my personal opinion, I think that they are both very toxic individuals. I think that there are a lot of other ways to deal with situations, especially when it comes to like having kids and being like social media, I would say social media stars, but then you involving the world in your dirty laundry. I'm not in any way condoning what happened to her if it happened to her, but there are a lot more progressive ways to deal with those situations. And that's why we have our special guests to come on to help those who might be going through that at the moment. Abuse can take many forms. In this case, she was saying that he physically and also mentally abused her. But then he was saying that she did the same. Back and forth within our private group chat, we've been like discussing and showing different videos pertaining to like male and female domestic abuse because people don't think the man is get beat. The man is get beat, you know. I myself has been attacked one time by a female. if you could believe that. But I mean, she attacked me, reject, but I didn't hit her back. I mean, I kind of like, hold it down. You know what I'm saying? Like, hold it down. But people just don't know how to control themselves, especially when it comes to somebody who they claim that they love. A lot of people have like a distorted view on love, and they don't understand if you love somebody, you could just simply walk away. You don't have to hit them or hit them back because then both of y'all could be charged in different states as abusers, which is crazy. If your girl hits you and then you hit her back, then both are going to jail. Because nobody's supposed to put their hands on anyone. Just my public, thing. But I think the whole thing was very immature the way how Major Hype went about it. Him being her elder. I think he's 50. I think she's like 32 or something. So the way how he went about doing it and presenting his case, being an older, seasoned individual, was pretty immature. And that's about it. That's my take on it. So Pinky. Oh, my fault. Go ahead. Who's next?
No, what was his response? Because I don't remember an actual response from him. I think I may have missed that video. But did he actually like respond?
Well, he responded by showing pictures of her from out of her phone that he had. Like dudes and was sending her nudes. Her friends and were calling him like a cash register. She was pretty much responding to dudes, trying to link up with dudes. So it was kind of like so she was saying that he was beating her, and then he was saying, well, look at what she was doing. But he never like stood back and said, I didn't do it.
Right.
So pretty much like he tried to justify his actions if he did do it, because that's what it came across to me.
Sure.
But and also try to take away her power by making her look bad. Which of course that's what most narcissists do. They try to make you look like if it's your fault and you're the issue, but in essence is them. So and then sometimes too is like we have situations where women could be lying and we don't know. And the bad thing is the fact that no matter what, being a male especially, a woman could come and tell somebody or go on national TV and say Lucian Downs raped her, even though I might not have even touched her, or like let's say like what Lucian Downs beat her. No matter what, they have some people who will believe what she say, and others that won't. The bad thing is if she's lying, no matter what, my name and reputation will be scarred because they're gonna have those people who believe her. So I just think that a lot of times that situations like that should not be promoted as such, because to me really and truly is like we are being judge, jury, and executioners to people who might not have done anything. But as I said, just the way I'm not right. I'm not saying that he did it, and I'm not saying he didn't do it. But if he did do it, definitely something should be done about that instead of just thinking about a monetary aspect of it. Go through the due process. Go through the police. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't just come on social media and air the laundry and then you don't go to the police. To me, that's kind of crazy. But
I agree, and I think social media makes it so easy. Before 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't have social media. So if you want to tell a lie on somebody, you actually literally have to go from person to person and tell this lie. Now you could just turn on your phone and say whatever you want to say without any type of repercussion, and you can say anything about anybody and just slander. And so I think that people need to be a little bit more responsible. With the use of social media. I don't think that was the best way. But then again, if you're getting abused by somebody who has a huge following, what's the best way to attack it?
Right.
Go right there.
And let me just tell you a quick little something. Like I remember a few years ago, like I had like a really bad experience at a restaurant on St. Croix. And I know I have a decent following. So instead of me going out there and calling the restaurant name, I just told about the situation, but I never mentioned the restaurant's name, because if I had mentioned the restaurant's name, it might have had like a bad effect on their business. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Which of course you want them to change, but then at the same time you don't want them to take a hit that they close down.
Correct.
So social media is very powerful, and there are a lot of people out there who have followings that you could either make or break them. So being truthful and dealing with stuff in the correct manner is what we all need to do or strive for. You know, especially being adults. Once again, is a way to deal with every situation. And she thought that was the best way, but then once again, it has to deal with like your children seeing these tapes, your children seeing these, and I'm just like, they ain't even thinking about that. It's just their egos at play. So, what's your take on it, Pinky?
I don't know. I didn't like how he handled the situation. Because, and I only saw one tape, and he said he didn't release the sex tape, but then he was still showing tapes of her in, very compromising situations and other men private parts. And I just thought, like, okay, if you say you were protecting her because she have a son and I have a kid, I guess, I think they have a kid together. If you say you were protecting her, then why did you show these things? I mean, you could have accused her, you could have used the emails or the text messages, but I don't know. I think both of them just handled it very poorly. Now, I'm from the outside looking in, and I cast in judgment, even though I don't want to. But hey, whatever. Let's just have fun. Anyway, but did she do these things? We don't know. Did he hit her? We don't know. But what I look at was, man, her face looked really bad, and nobody said. He said he didn't hit her. My thing was, if she did all those things, right, that he accused her of, and she provoked him into anger, and he did attack her, he did hit her out of anger, is that right? Is that right for a man to just hit a woman because he's not pleased with what she's doing, because she cheating on him, because she insulting him and belittling him, attacking her? What would have draw the line? So he said he didn't abuse her, but did he say he didn't hit her? See, I didn't follow it that much, because it was frustrating me. The whole situation will frustrate me, and I really don't like to watch too much of that kind of negative things. But it's just a situation where you don't know the answers, but then you have to ask yourself, if he hit her, it's still abuse in my eyes. Even if she had did all them things, she did cheat on him, she did belittle him, she did do all them things. It's still abuse in this. She abusing him verbally, she abusing him emotionally as a man, she abusing. So the two of them is abusers in my eyes. Second thing is, he had texts over like 2 years, from 2 years ago, a year ago. Why was he still with her? That's another thing. Like, why are you gonna still stay in a relationship where this person is capable of these things, and then you dragging us in it by bringing all this stuff, like, over social media? Like we said, we're gonna watch. I mean, we don't watch his shows, so of course we're gonna watch because we want to know what's going on. Where do we draw the line? I mean, like, and then we don't get caught up in these things, because if we like the person, and we could use R. Kelly, we could use Michael Jackson. It's still got people out here claiming Michael Jackson innocent. Again, how do we know, right? We got Epstein, we got Bill Cosby. If you love Bill Cosby, people, when this whole stuff has started with Bill Cosby, people just love Bill Cosby. They was on his side. So I think with these people in Hollywood, or these people, we don't look at and we love them, what they're doing to us is they're saying, like, they're bringing this, and then we making decisions based on what feelings for them, liking them as, whatever they are. That's the whole problem I have with this whole thing. We don't get caught up in the middle. We don't know the truth. We still don't know. Michael Jackson was allegedly, but he never was accused. But I sure want sending my son over to his house, or I want sending my daughter over to his house. I want going to his house. You know, like, where do we? Well, I could have gone because he didn't like women, but me, or I'm too old. I don't know. Michael Jackson, he was a, but I'm just saying, where it's confusing and it's just sickening, to be quite honest with you. We just to that point. I to that point where I just find it to be very sickening.
She also said something that was.
Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
Sorry. She also said something that was interesting. She said that she alleges that he stood up in front of her and he started to cut himself as well in front of her. So I don't know if you guys remember that part that she said he, you know, he was cutting himself. So that's a whole nother level of abuse. You know, in addition to if he hit her, right, that's bad enough. But then you stood up in front of her to play on her emotions and started cutting yourself as if to inflict some kind of emotion for her to stay or to not say anything, to impart like sympathy for you. I don't know. I take it really light. Like Pinky said, you know, I feel like we get dragged up in this thing. And I wasn't there. And so I just hope that they could find a resolve. I know the last thing that I saw that she was, they created a GoFundMe account and trying to collect money for an attorney to help her with her attorney fees. Like I just had to exit stage left. Like no more, you know, but
right.
Yeah, it's a sad situation.
So, Armin, what's your take on it?
Honestly, I didn't ever see. I didn't really look at it or anything like that. I was like kind of way too busy these past few days. But my take on abuse is it shouldn't be by any party. You know, just like what Pinky was saying that, you know, a man beating a woman shouldn't hit a woman should hit a man either. So it's like that back and forth thing. I think like nobody should be hitting anybody. I think we a lot of them abuse things that come from you know, your past, whether it be parents or some elder in your family you're seeing treating the other gender a certain way, and people are trying to pick up on that and stuff like that. So I think we got a lot of generational causes that need to be like cleared up, and that's exactly one of them. I don't think anybody should abuse anybody. Like Louis always said, conversation is the thing. You know, we got to have them conversations. And if you're in a relationship that is going south, just exit it. You know what I mean? There's millions of people in this world. You don't get caught up with one person. And I mean, just exit. You know? And that's my take on it. Like I said, I didn't really read up on this. I didn't watch any videos. I didn't see anything about it, you know, because I don't really follow them things. But abuse is a no-no, you know, in any form, whether it be verbal, physical, emotional, you know, that's not love, you know, or maybe it is love that lasts its way and trying to find its way back, you know. But I just say abuse is a no-no in any shape or form. It's my take on it.
Mr. Yano.
Good evening. You guys can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My apologies again for being late. You know, right. The thing with it is, I actually looked at his video to hour and 25, I think, minutes, and I chopped it up. I couldn't stay there for hour and 25 and watch the whole thing. And then I also saw some video surface of the young lady or in question. I don't know if it was, you know, that weren't so pleasant at all either. So honestly, first of all, I don't think any of us here, I think we're all in agreement. No one here actually condones any type of abusive behavior or anyone being subjected or anyone perpetrating any type of abuse in any relationship. And that's the purpose of this conversation. It's an unfortunate and sick reality that exists. The sad part about this is this tabloid style display, on social media that they have with regards to their personal life. That's I clearly I don't agree with that at all. I think if in fact they do have some disagreements or any type of disputes that should be handled amongst themselves, it shouldn't be out here like that. But we got people that strive for this. And like Janelle mentioned, there's a GoFundMe page. I mean, they're playing. It's like they're playing on on us, on society. So now here it is. It becomes monetary now, and now there's a value to it. Information. So I just think it's unfortunate for them to display that. There is a kid involved, from what I understand. That's a whole other level of therapy on that end, and what that's going to bring forward for them moving, being together and moving forward. And I think he professed that he still loves the young lady. Again, we don't know how true any of this is. It's just a crazy display of lifestyles of how people live and the abuse that they endure, and the abuse that they actually put out as well. I mean, it's terrible, to be quite honest with you. It's ridiculous, and it's just unacceptable, and something that I don't think any of us should ever have to experience or be a part of. Definitely on that level. I mean, where you exposing? I mean, some of the videos that the young lady, well, alleged videos that were out there with her and what she was doing, and
But he saw these things before. So my thing is, well, if you had known all of this stuff before, and it was terrible.
Yeah. So I don't know if he was trying to fix her, or think he has the ability to fix something that's, that's obviously damaged on a crazy level. I don't know if he felt that he has the ability to do that, and because he obviously accepted it.
And he said she had a history also.
This is what some of the videos that have been come out shows, a history of these types of behaviors. So it's crazy. It's crazy. It's next level, and it's something that is like, this is, they need to be fixed. I don't know if they're able to fix each other, but they need some professional intervention.
The both of them.
But
that's clearly.
I'm piggybacking on what you're saying, Louis. The whole thing about it is this. So both of them were in previous relationships together, right? They cheated on their significant others, and then they moved on to another relationship. So my thing is this, like, where was the time in between where they,
Right.
fixed themselves? You know what I'm saying? I don't think people understand, like, how important it is to take some time off, deal with your situations, and then, like, embark on a new relationship. There was no time in between. So I'm just like, okay, so first of all, she was a cheater. He was a cheater. You know what I'm saying? And here you all are in this relationship thing, and then nobody trusts anybody. So you go into everybody's phone, and then of course he found something he wasn't looking for. And of course, like, as a man, she out there telling people, through the text messages that how, oh, you're so big and you're so this and that. So as a man, he probably felt like, damn, I might be kind of small, No,
but wasn't she telling him? Wasn't she saying that he was small to him, to his face? Didn't he say something like that?
No. She said that, like, she was talking on the text to this guy, saying like how big he was.
No, but like, he said
yes, Pinky,
that she was.
No, I'm agreeing with Pinky. Because I think at some point she did mention that. Okay. Well, he said that's what she said. And again, there's a lot of
text. I haven't seen any text. I didn't see no video. How come I ain't sharing?
I watched the whole. I looked up on YouTube. I watched the whole thing.
The thing is, it came out when it came out. It was hot. It was fresh, but everything has been removed now because of the content. The content is really explicit.
Right.
So it was just when it, like I said, came out. You were like. People were just like, wow, and I was like, wait a minute, this is serious? This is real? Is this another skit of his? Because he's famous for his, happy hot day, hey, baila, baila. Everybody know Major Hype. I mean, that's my dude.
I love some Major Hype. Now I don't know if I should watch you or not. I'm confused.
This is crazy. And then you have that population of folks like thinking like you, Pinky, like, come on, this can't be the same cat. This can't be happening. but it's there, and it's
I
that.
ain't that person who say can't be happening now. I don't
No,
trust
no, no.
none of that.
I know that. No, but
No.
I'm saying it's the the perception is like, wow, this is unbelievable. It's like, really?
But you know what, too, Louis? I think the major issue that we have with people who are in certain uncertain levels in society, that these are the real people. These are their representatives. You know what I'm saying? We don't know them. It's like
Right.
when we
Right.
go and we vote for it's like when we go and we vote for like senators and governors and
Yeah.
presidents. It's like we think that because they have some values that we share, that we know them.
Right, right. And we don't even really know if they share our values now. We just
They
know
just
what
have a
they tell me and we
title.
believe them. And
Exactly.
so a trust issue gets, there is a trust level that we, like, I think as a society now, I don't know about nobody else, but for me,
It's
I don't trust
questionable, the
nobody.
trust level now. Yes, it becomes questionable at this point.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well,
so
what
back
I
to you,
want to,
Debbie. Go ahead.
what for me, like I explained to the group, we did have our discussion about it. But for me, again, when we talk about love and enlightenment, we know these things exist. There's mental, there's sexual, there's verbal, there's physical, there's emotional, and there's financial abuse. And at the end of the day, people stay in a weird way in love and tolerate a lot of this behavior, and it's unfortunate that a lot of us have been exposed to it in some shape or form, whether it's personally or friends or family, and in this case a celebrity, and we see it a lot, and unfortunately a lot of people use social media and its medium to exploit people. And at the end of the day, like everybody said, we don't really know what happened. Um, we don't know. So one of the things that I took away from it was that I wanted to bring on two guests who have had to work in the field, because at the end of the day, I think as a society, just as a listening audience, as a group, we need to do our part in healing ourselves, healing our family, healing the community, so that people can have healthy, strong relationships. So I'm going to bring on Miss Kanuma Simmons and your mic. And then I'm going to also bring on Lieutenant Deborah Hodge. And Kanuma is a former executive director at DMSAC, which is
There's a
the domestic.
feedback.
Yes, I think somebody's.
Debbie, Debbie, excuse me. There's a feedback.
Yeah. Okay. It's not there, so it's one of the two of you all. I'm not sure which one.
Do we?
But one second before you all unmute, and make sure you don't either have like another device on that's showing the program, because that could be it as well, or take the volume off of that. Kanuma Simmons is the current owner of Girlfriendism Businesses. She has several businesses underneath that entity. And she was the former executive director at the VI Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council. And Deborah Hodge is lieutenant in the VI Police Department. So I kind of wanted to have them come on and just speak to us about abuse, and even using social media as ways to exploit and hurt people. And not just social media, but I mean, texting and, just all the craziness that's going on. And unfortunately, it doesn't just affect us, there's children involved, so I don't know. Deborah, you want to speak first? Let me unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Kanuma, I agreed that she would begin and then I would follow up.
Okay, she's gonna go first?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Kanuma. Let me see.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, for having us. Where do I begin? Can I like chime into all of the conversation? Because my heart is like palpitating as I listen to the comments and I'm writing down notes. I have a full page of notes. So can I go over those and just give my thoughts as someone who has been in the domestic violence field, but also as a survivor of domestic violence? So I think when I listen to these conversations, I always hear it from both sides. So the first thing I would say is I think one of my greatest desires, especially for the Black community, is that when we say there is no excuse for domestic violence, that we end that with a period. I really want that to be the direction that we go in when we talk about prevention and intervention, meaning that a lot of what I hear is, we don't condone violence, but the videos she put out were kind of crazy. Or we don't condone violence, but there is a GoFundMe. Or we don't condone violence, but you know, she was hitting back too. If we don't condone violence, I just want it to be, we don't condone violence, period. And so from my perspective of the whole Major Hype situation, there's nothing you can tell me, especially as someone who has been in this field, that would change my mind about supporting her. GoFundMe page, whether she had to defend herself, there's nothing that you could tell me that would make me change my mind about the fact that there is no excuse for violence, period, right? So I do think that that is part of the work of ending it, is for us to really evaluate, what do we mean when we say that we don't tolerate it, that we don't condone it? Do we really not condone it? Or do we not condone it to an extent, right? So, and that's the work that we all have to do, because it's not just with this conversation, it's something that I even have to, you know, check myself at times when I find myself questioning someone, like, well, no, Kinuma, do you believe that we condone violence or not? Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think Major Hype is guilty as heck, okay? Let me just put that on the table.
Thank you, girl. Thank you.
I was like, I don't even know who with Major Hype. And then Janelle sent me the videos and I caught up and I was like, right? So here's my thing. And Lucian, I hear you when you talk about that 2 to 10% of people who may not be telling the truth, right? But for the 90 to 98% who are, this is my thing. If we are on the other end of some crazy social media attack that is not true, my thing is with Major Hype, why did he not say, I'm sorry that this was her experience? Why did he not say, I do not agree with violence? Why did he not say, I didn't do it, right? So I think that it is awful to be on any side of it, to be the victim or to be accused of something that wasn't, that you did not do. But then I also find it, I'm baffled by the fact that he also didn't stand up and say that he doesn't condone violence. So then it doesn't lean me towards believing him any more than her. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Because we talk about who do we believe, right? And no one is going to know the full truth other than those two people and God. That's it, right? But for me, it's always to provide support and offer support and believe people when they do share, right? I comment now, Debbie. I know it was so much things. I was like,
that's okay. No, go ahead.
Then I also wanted to touch on the piece of the social media and survivors using social media as a platform. So here's my thought on it. What does justice look like for a survivor? This isn't a black and white answer. It's different for everybody, right? For some survivors, justice looks like, I want to go through the court system and I want this heard in front of, you know, a panel, and I want that judge to decide. For some people is, I never want to see this person again or talk about it again. And for some people is, even if it is just the 10 people who listen to my live, I want to speak my truth. And I think for us as community who say that we don't condone violence and we support survivors, is to recognize, understand, and accept that it will be different for every survivor. And whatever they choose, that's fine. Now, for me, I didn't have that feeling, right, to go on social media and share, but I wouldn't judge a survivor who did. That might just be their form of what justice looks like for them, right? So I say for us to all just be patient and understanding that everybody responds differently to different things. And if we want to support survivors, then we just meet them where they are and respect how they choose to share their story. In terms of domestic violence in general, I think a lot of times we get distracted by the genders, the he and the she and the she and the he, right? And I think we spoke about this in the behind the scenes a little bit last night, is I think if we were to take out the gender for a little bit, when we have the conversations and we just talk about this person and this person, or one human to another, then sometimes that might help us to shift the perspective, because we do get caught up a lot in gender roles when it comes to domestic violence. And at the end of the day, it's not right for anyone to be abused, no matter what their gender is, and whether they're gender conforming at all, right? Because this is the reality of the world that we're in. Not everyone identifies as being a female or a male. There are people who fall in between the spectrum. So we just have to recognize that from human to human, that it's not acceptable. Okay, I don't want to take up the whole time. Debbie, you go. I don't take a breather. I feel like I'm talking a lot. But there's so much. There was so much in listening. So I'm going to let you go. And then I also come back to me.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. And although I have worked with Kanuma and all the other advocacy agencies and human sources for most of my career, as far as domestic violence is concerned, I kind of have to deal with it from a different perspective. I do have to be an advocate, but then at the same time, I have to switch hats and then become that person to slap on the handcuffs. So I have to be able to turn on and off a switch. But I will begin by saying that matters of the heart are complicated. And I think that in dealing with domestic violence for so long and hearing all the different excuses and being that silent person that's reading the commentary after an arrest, everybody expects people to respond or deal with their situation the way you want them to deal with it. And it's been my experience that everybody deals with things differently. And like Kanuma said, justice for everybody is not the same. It takes a victim an average of 7 to 10 times to leave before they actually leave, which means that we as police officers are going to respond over and over and over again to a home. And what I find is that sometimes all they want you to do is stop the violence. They still want to be with their loved one. And most people can't fathom that. They expect that if you're being abused, that you should just get rid of that person. It doesn't work that way. It's a very difficult situation to be in. There's no right or wrong answer as to how you should approach it. But what's important is that the Virgin Islands Police Department is committed to ensuring that victims are provided with the resources to protect them. We, not only by law and but by policy as well, we provide officers with not just that initial training in the academy. On an annual basis, we provide a refresher so that our officers are able to respond the way that they're supposed to. Do they respond the way they're supposed to outcome? Of course not. That's why there's a check and balance in VIP to make sure that we hold officers accountable. But as far as the law is concerned and as far as our policies are concerned, there are policies and laws in place to ensure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We want victims to feel comfortable when they call 911 that justice will be served. Now, there is no clear-cut answer to it. Not because you call 911 means that what you want is what's going to occur. A lot of times, the process can be very, very draining for a victim. And that is why I think it's important that officers connect with all the advocacy agencies and have that working relationship so that victims don't have to do it by themselves. So you come to us, I will call the Women's Coalition for you. I will take you to the shelter. I will take you to get your clothing or your belongings from the house. I will take you to court to get a restraining order. That is what our job. Our job does not just stop at taking a report, slapping on handcuffs, and moving to the next one. We of course, patrol officers are the first responding officers, and then there's a domestic violence unit, which I'm no longer a part of. Just like Kanuma, I have been with the domestic violence unit for most of my career, and I was recently, well, about 3 years ago, when I became a lieutenant, I was promoted to be the. I live in St. Thomas now, for those of you who don't know, but most of my career was in St. Croix. So when I moved to St. Thomas, I became the chief of investigations there. And about 7 to 8 months ago, I was transferred to the economic crime unit. And as a member of that unit, believe it or not, I am still dealing with domestic violence cases in that aspect. So, however, I am still the instructor at the academy. So it gives me an opportunity to continue to train officers and be that voice. I'm also that person that they would call if they need some sort of advice on cases involving domestic violence. So I'm still very much active in the field, but that is not my assignment anymore.
Okay.
Does anybody on the panel have any questions for either Kanuma or for Deborah? Everybody.
Wow, so quiet.
I'm sorry, my mic was off. Sorry.
Yeah, she was talking.
I was gonna say thank you for that overview, Deborah. That was very insightful. And I just want to say I think it's a good idea that the VIPD, allows you to still be a part of that work that you built over the years. A lot of the times, people transfer and move out to different areas, and then you gotta kind of start over. You have to build new relationships with people. You're already in the field. People are familiar with you. And so I think that's a good idea, so that you still have familiarity with a lot of the issues with the people. So there's a lot of trust there. And I think trust is very important when it comes to this field right here. So
I have a question for Ms. Hodge as well. Do you think that because of the lockdown that we've seen a rise in cases locally? I know like nationally they've seen like a rise in cases of domestic violence. But what about like locally?
Yes, but I am that person that believes that domestic violence always is always on a rise. So for me, it wouldn't be surprising. But yes, of course, and there's so many reasons for that. I mean, you are forced to be somewhere where you may not want to be. Sometimes people leave when they can to avoid argument or to avoid a situation, and so yes, of course.
Another question.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Louis.
No, well, I just wanted to ask Debbie. Debbie, hi, how are you? Deborah.
Hi, Louis.
I just wanted to ask you. You mentioned 7 to 10. You have to report to the same individual 7 to 10 times in a domestic violence case. I'm curious as to why you think that person. And I know I know you mentioned, it's they want to stay for whatever reason. But why is it that they want to stay? If it's an abusive relationship, what makes them want to stay in that environment? What?
Well, let me just clarify it. It's not that you have to stay 7 to 10 times, or what I meant by the comment was that you only leave when you're truly ready. And sometimes you leave because maybe a family member may encourage you to. Sometimes you leave because you were abused, but you're gonna go back if you're not ready to leave.
But that
is why in my entire career, and I've been with VIPD for 25 years, man. In my entire career, I've never ever told a victim to leave, ever.
So you've never told a victim to leave, is what you're saying?
I have never told.
So you've gone back that 7 to 10 times,
and I have gone back as if it was the first time.
Wow.
That is my.
I'm just trying to understand that
I want
logic.
all my officers to respond with. I don't want you to go back and say you again, and they've done that. You again, right. Because you know what? I think the one thing that a family member or a friend can do for a victim is always be there.
And Kanuma, if you don't mind, go ahead, finish, Debbie. No, you finish, please.
The time that you decide to leave is the time that, and you don't have support, is where it could become more dangerous.
So that was my next question as far as the support factor. And Kanuma, if you could just touch on that, because like you said, you understand this on a more intimate level. Again, that whole 7 to 10, because I kind of trying to understand that, like why would you stay there? You know, and I guess there's emotions involved. Again, like Debbie said, there's a family component. Please give me your view on that. And welcome, Kanuma. How are you?
Well, thank you. I go. Thank you. So let me do two things. So we know the numbers are 1 and 3, right? And so there are 8 of us on the show. And so let me just say that if I do math sort of kind of right, at least 2.5 to 3 of us right on the screen have experienced domestic violence, whether we recognize it or not, whether it was physical, emotional, or psychological, and it's probably more because that's just the number for those who have reported, right? So even sometimes we ask the question like, why, not realizing that I have actually experienced some of these things, right? But let me take it out of the context for domestic violence for a second, right? And just ask all of you, right? How many of you have been at a job that you actually absolutely cannot stand, but you go back to work the next day? Just put your hand up.
It's a good question. And you got me thinking. I had quite a few. So I guess that says something. If I ain't like it, I got.
But why would we? For me, some of it was financial. I love the work and the purpose behind of it. I remember the passion I had when I got into it, and I was continuously seeking that passion again. Right? A lot of it is not that much different in a domestic violence relationship. Remember, it's something that people are committed to. Part of it represents their identity. So when you're asking someone, when we ask someone to leave, which is something I never do either. So kudos, Debbie. Our training has come in handy. It's just something that we learn also in advocacy training. You don't ever tell somebody what to do, period. Because one, remember, domestic violence is about power and control. So if we come into the picture saying, well, you need to leave or you need to do X, Y, and Z, what have we just done? Again, we took away the little bit of control and autonomy that they have over their life. So now we are also siding with the abuser by now telling them what to do, as if they don't have the power to decide for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to just be there in that support. But then going back to the same analogy of the job, it isn't just a relationship, it's identity, it's dreams, it's hope, it's children, it might be property, it's finances, right? So it's a lot that we ask people to do when we talk about domestic violence. So 7 to 10 times, yeah, that is pretty accurate. And wow. I really have gone back to a job more than that, but there's different reasons why people do stay. And again, like Debbie said, a lot of times they just want abuse to stop. They don't necessarily hate the person. They still love different things about the person. And most people, even like with the Major Hype situation, I was looking at some of his other videos because honestly, I feel bad to even say this. I'm sure I heard him, but I didn't recognize him. I was like, who is this guy? And I looked at the videos and I was like, he's funny. I could see why people like him. You know what I mean? And the truth is, he could still be a good comedian and an abuser. So I can still like his shows, but still want to hold him accountable. Like, listen, right. You funny, you hype, you cool, but you need to work on something, okay? And this part of you I cannot support because I do not condone violence. So we have to also recognize that too. Saying that I support a survivor doesn't mean that you hate the other person. It's just about accountability.
Let me ask you one thing, and just not to again condone or promote anything. I know the disclaimers have gone out because none of us here, we all are in agreement. No part of any type of abuse at all. It's just condoned. But I think towards the end of his video, he mentioned, and I have a question behind it. He mentioned about he's never hit her. He doesn't believe in that. And is that typical of somebody who actually is a progressor, or the aggressor, I guess, if you want to say, in a situation like that? Is that typical of them? No, again, I don't know. I'm not agreeing. I don't know if that's what happened. We don't know. There's 2 sides to a coin, or 3 sides and then the truth. But is that typical? Is that the behavior? Because I think he mentioned, and Lucian, I know you side to the end. I think he talked about, I never put my hand on a girl. That he talks. That's my Major Hype impression. I don't know. But so tell me, is that typical for them to come out and publicly, like if and Debbie, you could probably talk about that too. When officers come on the scene, oh no, me hit that, never put my hand on her. What happens? And then what about those situations where it's fabricated? We got game to that too. But let me
So
finish this part first.
I
Okay.
want to touch on the fabrication part, because one thing that really offends me, and I'm going to be really honest, that, there are too many people that have died at the hands of domestic violence
Wow.
to have people dwell on the maybe 1%.
Right.
I think that, and I think that we do a pretty good job as investigators deciphering it, but it's not necessarily our job. And that's to protect victims. But when I say it's not your job, I mean, like, if the evidence shows that this person was abused, our laws are written in a manner in which let the defense attorney fight that battle. Now, if you come to me and you say that you were slapped and you have no injuries, that says that there's no probable cause. I cannot make an arrest without probable cause. So the laws are written in a manner in which we have to be accountable for our actions as well. So I'm looking for certain things. We're trained to look for things from a layman perspective and a law enforcement perspective. So if you say certain things were done to you, it has to match. What was done to you has to match the injury. So we're looking for all these things. Do people lie? Of course, people have lied. But should everyone be penalized because someone has lied? I have to start by believing and then let the evidence prove otherwise.
Okay.
It's just, I can't do that to a victim. And I don't intend in my career to re-victimize a victim. So I make all attempts to make the right choices when I respond to a home. So a lot of times you hear officers go to a scene and they're like, arrest everybody, or they tell the victim, if the victim and the perpetrator, if I have to come back, everybody go in jail. That's not what we were taught. You go there and your job is to search for the primary aggressor. Primary aggressor does not mean that you start it necessarily. So the primary aggressor has a lot of aspects to it. The history of violence between the two parties. So for example, Louis, if you and I in a relationship and I'm a victim and you have always abused me, and this one day I decide to push you. I push you and you stab me multiple times. Should I still arrest both parties?
Wow.
Because you got pushed? A lot of people disagree, but I'm not making that arrest. I will not re-victimize a victim, and I try my best not to re-victimize a victim. Does it occur? Of course, because in some instances, the victim may have done something that deserves or warrants an arrest, and by all means, you got to do it. Now, for example, if you go to a situation and it's mutual combat, there's ways of handling that, which doesn't necessarily equate to making an arrest. I mean, in the world of domestic violence, you have to get it. That's something that we're taught.
And then you have situations where you have your background folks, are those considered aggressors also in a situation? Because they're provoking a situation. How does that work? I mean,
it's so funny you say that, because sometimes victims, that's all they have is a mouth. And you'll be surprised, we kind of characterize, just theoretically, we characterize perpetrators. And, some of them would have that character where they are just calm on the exterior. And they have done all the abuse. And when the police arrive, now this is where she have her mouth. She have backup, so she gonna run her mouth.
Right.
And then you get the perpetrator is like, officer, look at what I have to deal with. Look at her behavior. And you instantly believe, okay, she must be the problem. But when you properly trained and you apply your training,
you sift through all of that crap.
You don't let that determine your decision. You separate the parties, you interview them separately, you interview children, you interview neighbors, and you go that extreme and to that extent to get your investigation done properly.
I'm listening to you guys and I'm shaking my head, being a victim myself at a point in my life. And, you know, the thing that I hear, Louis, and I hear a lot of people who are unfamiliar with abuse is that, why didn't leave? And I'm glad I addressed that topic because it's not that simple. And we think you have to face a wall with a wall judging you. And you yourself you judging yourself too on a level because you feeling bad to yourself. And that's the one message I want us to get across today is that you're not less than, you're not weak, you're not stupid, you are enough, you are capable, and you could do things. You just need to take your time, you need to figure it out, you need to have a plan. You have children, you're financially dependent on someone, you built a life with this part. You cannot just get up and say and the thing about abuse is it's not always physical. So you in a situation where it's emotional, financial, or it's verbal, and you thinking to yourself, well, me ain't got black eye, me ain't got bloody nose, so it's not. But it's the same. Because if you in an abusive situation over a period of time, this is like, I hear Maya Angelou say, it's like people picking at you. And they pick at you till you ain't got nothing left. Yeah, and that is a serious place to be where you ain't got nothing left. Abuse wears many faces. It's not as simple, but we have to have a compassionate heart for the person that's being abused. We have to not judge them. And it's like Deborah and Kanoma says, they have to have a support system behind them, knowing in the end that somebody gonna be there, even if they went back 10 times. Because Rihanna video said 9. She went back 9 times. Rihanna had money. Rihanna was young. She was beautiful. She had an excellent career. Why did she go back? Love is a factor that we keep forgetting. You don't just get up and, oh, he hit me, love you no more, because love don't work like that. We don't understand this. Love is love. And sometimes you truly love and you want the best and you want the person to change and you don't want the marriage to end. You don't want the relationship to end. You want them to be different because you believe these lies. They can be different sometimes. Sometimes they can. Very small percentage of them can be different. But the fact is, these are all factors that it's not one answer and it's not even 10 answers.
I had a girlfriend tell me once, she said, let me tell you something, okay? You play with growing up emotions, you're gonna get grown up reactions. So that was heavy. I was like, wow. Interesting concept. But no, you guys really get some insight. Pinky, I don't know where you were coming at me. I was just curious.
No, I just mean from our backup conversations.
I just got you.
It wasn't until you, Louis, brought it to my attention that males could be in an abusive relationship. I was like, males?
Of course, yes.
But I never saw it till you said it. And then I started thinking about it. And then I figured out, wait, now I know a man who's in an abusive situation. You know, I don't want to laugh, but just saying, I was like, wow, I know somebody who is in an abusive situation. I'm a male. And now look at this. I know somebody, I believe I know somebody, a male. What am I doing to help this male? This is abuse. What am I doing to help the male that I feel is in an abusive relationship? Nada. This is abuse. You don't just walk in and you don't just start doing and making and it's a very sticky situation.
Any comments, Debbie? Any comments?
Kanoma, you muted.
Sorry.
Sorry. No, and I agree, Pinky. That's a really good point. And I think one of the ways that we could shift the conversation is also asking, instead of why do they stay, is why do abusers continue to abuse?
Right.
Because remember, this person leaving is not going to stop the abuse. They're just going to find somebody else to go and abuse.
Right.
We have to recognize that if we're looking at really ending violence, I could leave. But then somebody else gonna come in this role and they're gonna be abused too, most likely, because they're not doing it to themselves. It's abusers, right? And it's usually a smaller number of abusers that are repeat offenders with multiple people. Right. And so that's the thing that I also say when I speak to people, that like, no, we're not trying to paint all men as bad, because it's actually a small number of men, but they go in and out of relationships and they do the same thing over again. But because us as community, we look at maybe the 12 to 15 women they've been with and say, well, why didn't they leave? Well, they didn't know that they're gonna go back and they what he do to she. Well, none of them are actually the problem. They're not abusing themselves. It's the person who is abusing that we need to really be investigating. And I do think that's part of the movement hasn't always been good about addressing this part of it, because I love and value and appreciate the strides we've made, or that we have come to strides in providing support to survivors. There's still a lot of work to be done, because every time I look at a consortium post and somebody has the courage to speak out, and then I start looking at the comments, it gets a little better, but then there's still some that are like, they really want to know why people don't come out. I mean, why would if I'm looking
Exactly.
at it, I say, well, thank God I didn't share my story, because God knows what they would have said about me. You know, so we have work to do.
Right.
But also the side of the perpetrator. I mean, I think I really do believe that for us to get closer to ending violence, is we really have to get to the root of why our abusers abusing to begin with, and how do we provide support to them? Because since we do know that their partners are going to go back 7 to 10 times, then for me as an advocate, it behooves me to want to help find some healing for this person. So at least maybe when this person goes back the 8th time, that abuser doesn't abuse again, and that's where we actually intervene the cycle.
Well, let me ask you something, Kanuma.
I like that.
Let me ask a question. Do any of does anyone actually approach the abuser themselves to try to figure out, you know, because this the whole 7 to 10 times going back to help the victims? What is it like to address the abuser and figure out why is what's going on?
Well, there's Men's Coalition of St. Croix. That's what their role is, as well as Men Terminating Violence, which is under the umbrella of Family Resource Center in St. Thomas. And then they're also Emerge is one of the larger curriculums for, they call it Battery Intervention Program. So there are services, but I ain't gonna lie to you. Like I said, we made strides in the movement, but I do feel like there's imbalance, because there's always funding for victim services. There isn't equal funding for batterers, right? And just as there is a shame to saying I'm a victim, there's also a shame for saying I'm a perpetrator.
Right.
Like, I mean, so we have a major gap in the movement where we need to find that balance and offer just as much services for people who are committing the crimes, and talking to the community about how to approach a batterer or an abuser. One, I hate the terms, to be honest with you. I hate the terms. Again, I wish I could just be like, let's just talk human to human. Okay? Let's look at the behavior, because I don't want to have people feel like they are bad. Their behaviors are bad. I do believe that most people are inherently good, but they have bad behaviors that they need to adjust, right? And I think that most people would adjust them if they have resources and support. But there's shame on both sides, right? There's the fear of, oh my God, if I come out as a victim, I may not be supported. But then there's also, you know, that stigma of being a perpetrator. I mean, I look at too sometimes with rapists, and I don't see so much with domestic violence. Sometimes I do. And some of them are pretty extreme, like, when they get to prison, we gonna kill he. And I'm like, well, damn, that's still somebody's son, that's still somebody's, you know, family member. Can we try to help to rehabilitate them? You know, and to kill them? Like, are we gonna end violence with violence? No. So I do think a lot of it is that conversation too, like you said, Lou, like, how do we approach someone who has been on the other end? And for me, it's just being a listening ear for them just as much as I would a victim, and try to understand, well, what was it that triggered that? Like, where does that come from? What would have helped you to make a different decision? You know, and to say, well, listen, just as I would say to a victim, I am here for you, I would say to the perpetrator, listen, if you really are committed to making change, know that I am here for you, and I support that. I don't support your behavior. I'm going to hold you accountable. But if you are seeking healing and seeking help, that I do support. So we just have to become more comfortable having conversations with both sides if we're ever to find balance in the movement.
I totally agree, Kanuma. I think the movement and I think we've talked about this before, where the movement has to make that shift, because if all your services are geared towards fixing the victim only, what happens to the perpetrator?
Right.
The same perpetrator that the victim who's already healed has to go back to. We have to change the movement where we are addressing. A lot of our funding are for women.
Yep.
And we have to just be honest about it. So, like the Men's Coalition, they have to do, their funding is always less than. And once we recognize it and we put it out there, even though we are all for empowerment and making sure that women are no longer, because don't get me wrong though, the percentage is still off, you know, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but we still have to address that issue of the perpetrators.
I
And
want,
we
I
just can't
want
ignore
to, sorry, Deborah, I want to interrupt a minute because we have a lot of people
Okay.
putting comments in here, but I also want to kind of, and just, this is just food for thought. I always say that it's one thing to heal someone, but it's another thing to create a mindset. So what are is being done? And this is not just, you know, in the Caribbean, the Virgin Islands and throughout the Caribbean, but nationwide. What's being done to bring information to children? Because I think at the end of the day, that's where it starts. And if they're in a home that's not healthy, they're not going to learn from the home. So you know, it's something to me that really, I talk to a couple people and I say, you know, when we talked about finances and when we talk about how you deal with people, it really needs to start from elementary. And I mean, not just one time, it's something that really needs to go throughout the whole 12 years of school. But let me just kind of, I'm going to read some of the comments because we have a lot. I'm not going to call names. Normally I call names, but it's a lot. So I have someone that says, great topic. Side note, mom, you look great. That's Pinky, daughter. Love should not hurt. Abuse is a no-no. People without faith and any moral compass will do anything. We can't expect them to be honest or do things with any decency. I hate these things. I think this is when we're talking about the whole major hype. I hate these things because it's he say, she say at this point. How do we know if he or she really did these things? Yet I sense, especially with the female fans and speakers, that their emotions are being played on and they speak as though they are assuming the accused is guilty. Don't condone, I don't condone abuse, but I am a fan, advocate, and cheerleader for clapbacks. Don't know about anyone else, but my father, a man with 5 daughters, preached and instilled in us, if they hit you, hit them back. And for me, I can't fight, so I have to get creative, and I'm very creative. Someone else said serial lovers. They both look in attention from the start of the relationship, day one behavior. Someone here says, hey guys, great topic. I always wonder why it is that humans cling to negative publicity like they do. We're supposed to love one to another, iron sharpens iron, each one teach one, and so on. But we are in no way close to that. And I'm trusting the Father that one day we get to where we should be for each other. And that's another thing that I think social media perpetuates, is that we're sharing all this information, which is just giving and feeding more into that. You know what I'm saying? It's not really solving anything, but that is also an issue. Let me see. There's a double standard here. As a detective, in the beginning, it was hard for me to understand why some women had such a hard time leaving the abusive relationship. You have to be very patient with the victims because the mental abuse was on such a high level, more so than the physical. Here in St. Martin, it is also on a rise as well during the lockdown. I stayed for 6 years, but when I was ready and done, I never went back. I'm not proud to say it took that long, but I did. I helped the victim leave, and a few days after, she was right back with her husband. They are still together now. I'm going to admit I am very, very ignorant to abuse, the whole thing, giving it and taking it. Because if you raise your voice at me, it's abuse. Put me down, it's abuse. Like if you're doing anything to hurt my feelings, it's abuse. And I walk like deuces. How does one begging to have empathy in this situation? Again, so that's where my ignorance comes in. Like I'm the one to say again, if my mouth doesn't say it, my face would. To some, it may seem like a no-brainer to just leave, but there are reasons why it doesn't always happen that way. It is important to get to the root cause of the abuser. Many have been victimized and are using that pain in a manner that ultimately takes that pain to an even darker place.
I just want to say one thing, but and any of you can answer, Deborah and Kanuma. So with the aggressor, and of course you talked about that. Have there been a time when, like you said, women may leave for whatever reason, and they just continue to be that aggressor? But have there been times when, like the one viewer mentioned about clapback, when somebody just said, I had enough, and then it becomes now, instead of a domestic violence situation, now you're looking at a murder situation now. I mean, you've seen that before. I mean, that's tell me about that. And we're trying to avoid that, of course. So tell me how does that, if any of you witnessed anything like that?
I have witnessed several situations. I mean, the one that stands out, I was not aware that there was a situation between both parties. I responded to a homicide, and while there, I found out that there were previous reports from both ends. And during that investigation, I actually went back to the scene to canvas, to speak with neighbors and just kind of get a perspective as to what they were hearing. And in that instance, this one guy actually spoke with me, and he said that he felt sorry for her because they both were perpetrators. They both, 1 minute he would be the abuser, the next minute would be he would be, and then it would be her. But the problem with that is, in the end, somebody is still dead.
Yeah. How do you prevent that?
And I
is it
learned in
even?
that particular situation that there were a lot of services were there for them. She was taking several classes with human services as far as family is concerned. So help was involved in the situation, but whatever it is occurred that day led to death, a homicide.
Wow.
So let me ask you this, Deborah.
Yes.
This is going along with what you're talking about. So what about somebody who might have like a mental issue? Because the thing about it, I think like some people, like what you're saying, it might be like a mentally disturbed individual.
So
Like how do you decipher that instead of just like, okay, well, let's let it go on, let the person go back. But what about the person's mental health? Like,
so law enforcement, in our capacity as law enforcement officers, it is not within our purview to determine that someone is mentally sound or not. We are obligated to make the arrest. And then when they get to court, then the system would deal with that mental illness. So it's after we do what we're supposed to do. We don't have that authority to say, even if we know that this person is certified because we've dealt with them before, as far as committing a crime, it is not within our purview to make that decision. So that is where the courts would, or the attorneys would petition to the court. In some instances, oh, my client is not able to stand, whatever. And then once those examinations are done, then a determination is made, but not at my level.
Deborah, let me ask
So
you. Danelle, you want to go ahead?
Go ahead, Pinky.
You said earlier, Deborah, that Lucian had asked the question about during the lockdown, the crime rate, the abuse rate going up. And you made a comment. You said you're not surprised, and the rate is always going up. And I'd like you to
okay, so let me explain that. I feel that it's going to always go up because, and Kanuma could tell you, because of the outreach that is being done in the community, people are more comfortable to report. I could tell you of an instance in which an arrest was made in a sexual assault situation, and he had several victims. And in this instance, a girlfriend's child was sexually assaulted. They were adults though, but somebody else that was related to him was also a victim. And because she went to advisor rights and she witnessed that somebody believed that victim, that gave her the courage to report. So I find that people don't report because sometimes they're embarrassed, they're afraid. Not talking about the situations in which they're not ready to leave, but when they're ready, sometimes they are discouraged because they don't know if somebody is going to believe them or blame them or accuse them of doing something that created the behavior. So I think education is that one thing that um, is the reason why people are reporting more, and the fact that they are trusting the process more.
Mm. Mm. So that's why you think it's because people are more comfortable now to come, not being able to come out now and say that they're in that.
That's what I think, for the most part.
Okay. Not, you don't feel that there are more abusers and there is a reason for them being more abusers in our society?
You know, battering is a learned behavior, and unfortunately, it's not going to stop. And like Kanuma mentioned earlier, we have to get into the reason why our men are battering. And I know when I teach at the academy, the young minds, especially the male minds, sometimes they get offended because the fact remains that men are usually the batterers. But we have to get over that. We have to get over feeling offended because we're talking about men. Let's fix it. I remind them to think about their own home and how, if you have boys and girls that you're raising, how you yourself raise them differently. So how do you expect your sons to act the same as a girl when you yourself teaching them different things? Well, for the most part, you have parents that are only allowing the boys to do yard work. We ain't teaching them how to take care of themselves, how to cook. I'm not saying it's not being done, but generally speaking, the girls have to stay inside and clean the house and do the inside stuff, and then the men do the rough things. So just think about how you yourself raise them, how you treat them, and telling your son, don't cry. Boys don't cry, man don't cry. We are part of that. It's a learned behavior, and we are raising our children usually the way we were raised. We have to break the cycle and then still bridge the gap. There's a lot that's going on in homes that we have no control over. One thing I tell the recruits at the academy is that from day one, whatever you thought domestic violence is or was or supposed to be, let it go and let's start fresh. Because in VIPD especially, our response can be affected by our own personal experiences, but we should only be guided by one thing, and that is that Title 16, sections 90 through 99. And that's very difficult to somebody. Most people enter the academy at an average of 21 years old. So for 21 years, I want you to just forget everything you've been taught. That's very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I'm not defending police action, but I am, because although I'm that person that is very willing to tell them when they're wrong, I still have to understand that it's not easy for them either when you think something is supposed to be or you were taught it was supposed to be, and here it is. We kind of had to come to tell you that's not how you're supposed to do it. It's kind of difficult. We as police officers have the authority to go into other people's homes and tell them that's not how you treat your wife. That's not how you deal with your children. I have that authority, so we have to be very careful, how we approach that situation.
Thank you.
Danelle?
So I guess my question was just kind of like trying to understand, like, if you're called to a situation in somebody's home. Start again? Okay, so if you're called into a situation and there's children in the home, at what point do you aim to, I guess, take the children out of the home? Like, when do you determine that a situation is like super toxic and like really
Okay.
not a good situation for children? Like at what
Let's
point?
just, okay, so police officers do not remove children from homes. Okay, so that is why it's imperative that we have a very close working relationship with all the advocacy agencies and especially human services.
Human
So the
services.
procedure is if there's a domestic violence situation in a home and children are present, my obligation is to notify human services. So I kind of raised up in the trenches, for lack of a better term, with the social workers that are now commissioners, as like Carla Benjamin and the commissioner herself, Gomez, Kasi Gomez. So we started off when they were just social workers in intake, so because those are the people that we would have to communicate with. I always learn in this work, if you're a plumber, stick to plumbing. So if I'm a police officer, I'm going to do police officer work and let human services come and do what they're supposed to do. So
Correct.
they have to go by their guidelines as to when they would remove a child. I am just obligated to let them know that something occurred and there are children in this.
Correct. And I mean, it wasn't, and thank you for that response. It wasn't really geared towards, VIPD, but just in general, what do you think people look for? What type of, when does a situation get to assault? And when you see this, then okay, all right, we have to remove this child. Like at what point?
As long as you, and the threshold is not what you expect. A lot of times police officers get upset because they feel that if there's a little mess in the house, that means the children gotta go somewhere else. It's not, that threshold is kind of wide in the sense that the children have to be in danger physically mostly. There has to be abuse in the home. If a man is accused, or anybody in the home, or an adult is accused of any kind of sexual behavior, they're automatically going to be removed. As long as if once their life is in danger, then of course they have to be removed.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Miss Simmons,
Yes, sir.
can you give us a little bit of information about how we can, get in, just help people, or just get information of where they can get in touch with you and stuff like that. So if they are experiencing something of this nature.
Yes. So first, I would say if anyone is looking and they are experiencing domestic violence, know that it is not your fault. Know that there are people who believe you and want to support you. I'm one of them. And well, that's a whole other conversation. Let me stick to the resources because that's another 20 minutes we're going into. So yes, I believe you, support you, and there are other resources that do. So if you're on St. Croix, there is the Women's Coalition of St. Croix. Their number is 773-9272. They do have a 24-hour crisis hotline. If you're on St. Thomas, St. John, there's the Family Resource Center of the Virgin Islands, and they are at 776-3966. That's also a 24-hour hotline number. Debbie, I want to touch on the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Council real quickly. They're not direct services, but I do know that you mentioned the children, and that organization, that is primarily their work, is to work with the children in the school. So if a teacher or someone in a school, a counselor may have concerns with their with something that children may have been exposed to or want to provide resources, they can always contact ZVSAC to come in and provide some educational resources. And they could be contacted at 719-0144, and they're on all 3 islands. And then for national, there is the hotline.org. So you literally go into the hotline.org, and that is also a 24-hour service that's available. And you can utilize that site to call them or to chat. So if you may be in an abusive situation and you can't talk because your abuser is right there, but you have access to your cell phone or to a computer, you can chat with them. So that is helpful. And then there's also the National Network to End Domestic Violence, so NNEDV.org. they have a listing of all of the coalitions in states and territories. So no matter where you may be looking at this show from, they would have contact information for your individual state and territory. And of course, if you're ever in an emergency, immediate danger, call the 911.
Perfect. We're almost at our hour and a half, and I knew this was going to be a lengthy. It goes by so fast, but there's so much information, and I want to definitely thank everyone for for us deciding to venture on having this conversation, because I think at the end of the day, all of us have been exposed to it in some way, shape, or form. Because again, I didn't even think about it till the other day about financial abuse. I just, you kind of know there's situations like that, but you don't even really necessarily see that as abuse, but it is. We're gonna probably have to segue into something else for next week, but it still is going to involve this, because like I put out there, we talk about addressing the victim and addressing, hopefully one day getting to the point where we can openly address the perpetrator. But again, I feel like it really needs to start from young. And if we're really going to heal our communities the way we really need to, we need to educate them. And it can't be, a volunteer sort of situation that someone decides to put their child in a camp that they learn about this. I mean, this has to come into play in the educational system. Of course, nationally, it might be a little harder. I think island-wide, maybe it's an initiative that really needs to be pushed. But again, if we really, our goal is really to heal our families, heal our relationships, we really need to address this, because we are living in a world where all sorts of things are going on. And it's just not going to get better, or we're not going to try to stave off some of what's happening if we don't really actively get involved. So I definitely want to thank both Kanuma, which is my god sister, for anybody who's looking that's not from the Virgin Islands, and Deborah is Ellen McGraw's sister. So I'm the Deborah sister in Tampa, and she's the real sister in St. Thomas. So I want to thank them both for coming on. I can tell from the comments that we had that everyone was really into what was being said. And of course, as you all know, after the show, it takes on a life of itself. We were supposed to address that we were going to we're going to do some giveaways, but we'll do that next week. But I want to again thank all of the viewers who have looked on tonight, as well as those who will in the future. I want to thank our panelists, as always, for being here and being a part of this Love and Enlightenment group. And we'll be letting you know what our conversation will be for next week. Is there anything else anybody wants to say?
Thank you very much, Kanuma. Thank you very much, Deborah.
Thank you.
You made the conversation
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I learned
blessings and thank you to both of you for sure.
Yeah.
This
Thank you
was
for
very
having
good.
me.
And it's good seeing you, Deborah. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know.
Yeah.
So much, ladies.
Thank
I
you.
learned a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Differently.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all. No matter the
Amen.
island.
And like I say, everybody, please stay safe and healthy. And definitely join us again next week. Bring your family, bring your friends, so we can just continue this dialogue. Have a good evening.
Okay, good evening.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.